Thank you very much, and perhaps I should start by apologizing for bringing paper to the podium, but it's what I know. My mission, as I understand it, was to present three problems in delivering surgical education in Canada, the Canadian perspective, and three lesser problems. I have a good memory, but it's rather short, and we'll drift into potential solutions as we move through this. Remind you a little bit about Canada. Canada is a very large country with a relatively small population, and about 90% of us live within 100 miles of the U.S. border, trying to cuddle up down here where it's relatively warm and stay away from the vast and greater North Country. Yet there are people in those areas that do require care. This is a distribution of physicians in Canada, and you can see physicians, like the rest of the population, tend to live in large centers in the southern regions. Also, for context, I would like to remind you that the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada is the single college for all specialties in Canada, and we recognize 80 disciplines, and because I'm a surgeon, I'm just not allowed to say I think surgery is the most important. So my list of the top three, I think one of the largest challenges is preparing practice-ready candidates who are competent and confident to practice. They need to be competent and confident to practice in any of the jurisdictions that they might be called upon to work. Their competence must be demonstrated in all of the CanMeds roles, and we must remember that the 6 intrinsic roles are all essential to be that medical expert. The other challenge for us is the ability to provide training for surgeons so that they are comfortable and confident to enter any practice location within Canada, ranging from the rural center to a focused academic practice. Our list of lesser problems include the implementation of a competency-based education and assessment framework across the educational continuum, so focusing on lifelong learning rather than the isolated silo of residency training, and then leaving individuals free to choose their own and plot their own course in practice. We heard Richard Resnick allude earlier to the Competence by Design program, which we've started to implement in Canada, and I will speak to that with some passion if you want to corner me in the hall at coffee break. Faculty engagement and support is essential for new methods of teaching and assessment, and we need to have our trainers engaged in this so that they too take on the passion for providing feedback with a focus towards quality improvement at all times. The other issue we're faced in Canada is a rather uncertain job market, and some of this may be based on the fact that we are driving further and further into subspecialization, which hospitals can't support, and therefore the need for the generalist physician that people wish to hire may be going against our mentoring, which is common in Canada, commonly provided in Canada by subspecialists. So in preparation to try and address some of these changes, CanMeds, which is now a framework which is a decade old, is rejuvenating in 2015. It's going to include newer things such as patient safety competencies, quality improvement, and practice in the digital age. But perhaps one of the more exciting aspects of it is the fact that it is going to have milestones which are directed towards individual phases of training. So in fact, we can follow the individual's trajectory throughout their training. The Series 1 draft document of CanMeds 2015 has been launched, and very shortly Series 2, which will include the generic milestones, will be launched probably later next week. The additional thing that we've taken to address surgical training in Canada is recently produced a task force report on the future of general surgery, evolving to meet a changing practice. This report is based on a national summit as well as international consultation and a literature review, and many of you in this room participated in some of that consultation at the ICOSET meeting held in 2012 in Ottawa. There are 4 key recommendations. Firstly, that we redesign general surgery training and curricula so that we're actually tailoring training to meet the practice needs of those going to a variety of different settings. But in that, we not lose sight of the fact that there are foundational aspects of training that should be maintained. As an example only, I'll say that every surgeon should be able to recognize, diagnose, and start the initial management of sepsis, of trauma, et cetera. That should be foundational to our profession. But in fact, if you're going to work in an academic center, you need to have that focus in that subspecialty. If you're going to work in a more remote setting, you need to have the general skills that allow you to provide service, perhaps at less depth than the individual working in the academic center, but greater breadth. We also would recommend that general surgery residency training should include a period of transition to practice. Currently, our certification exams are situated in the last 6 months of training. And what will a candidate do in those last 6 months? Drive directly to the library, spend their time in the books so they'll pass the examination, rather than address having the competencies that are required for training. And so we would recommend that the last 6 months of training should not have a final examination at the end of that, other than a sign-off on the electronic portfolio that you have achieved all those competencies. It should be a period of graded responsibility as well as graded supervision. We fully support a broader transition to a hybrid model of competency-based medical education. A totally time-free model would wreak havoc within postgraduate offices, as well as wreak havoc with the provision of service. But a hybrid model which specifically identifies the attainment of competencies is critically important. Finally, we see a role for post-general surgery training, having areas of focused competence which are add-on skills to general surgery training, which would allow individuals to continue to practice the broad foundation, but also have the ability to provide additional skills that are required for the community or the individual practice setting in which they work, be it a rural or remote setting or an academic center. So that is Canada's perspective on this, and I look forward to the debate and the discussion coming up.